The three ways that every single one of these saints had in common, simple. Number one, prayer. If you don't hear anything that I say today, I want you to hear this one thing. Anything that I say. Faith without prayer is a hobby. It is quite different to know about God than to know Him. Some people say to me, John, I do pray. I make my work my prayer. And I say, that's great, but don't fool yourselves. Do not fool yourselves. Every single one of the saints made it a habit of them to make time every single day to pray. If I was to open up your planners right now, or your calendars, I would see a lot of different things, wouldn't I? I'd see things that you're going to make time for tomorrow, the next day, next week, and next month. I'd see different meetings. I'd see different doctor's appointments. I'd see a whole bunch of different things that are very important. And it would tell me that's important because you've made time for them. Where in your pocketbooks and your planners and your phones would I see your prayer time? If I was to go around this room right now, I would see every single one of you, and I would ask you, and I would say, what's the most important thing to you in your life? I bet you 95% of you would say the Lord. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, great, prove it. Prayer is spelled T-I-M-E. Some people say, great, I want to pray. I really do, but how? I don't know how. I thought you'd never ask. Start with nothing. Start with silence. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI said that silence is the language of God. Silence is the language of God. Look, I travel a lot, 6-7 months out of the year, and I'll tell you what, it is unbelievable when I get to go home and I just get to be able to sit with my son, 14 months old, Joseph, and my wife, Teresa, and just hold them. I don't have to say anything, and my wife prefers it that way. What he wants more than anything, then, is us. What he wants more than anything is just simply our time. To make time for me. What if I said to my wife, look, honey, I love you, I really do, when I'm home, and I said, but, I'll give you 2 minutes a day, and I'm going to give you the 2 minutes right before I go to bed, when I'm most tired. Why so oftentimes are we willing to give God the worst part of our day, when we're most tired? Why aren't we giving God the best part of our day? How oftentimes are you praying with your wives, men? How oftentimes are we praying with our wives? It's the most intimate thing that we'll ever do. It's the most intimate thing you and I will ever do. You say she's the most important person to you? I hope she is. You say she's the most important person to you, then you're going to do the most important thing with her. Some people say, well, yeah, that's going to be really difficult, John, or it's going to be really awkward. And I look at you and I say, you're right. It's going to be super awkward to start it. I remember when I started praying with Teresa, I forgot the Hail Mary. I forgot the Hail Mary, and she thought it was cute because she knew how important it was to me. It's the most important thing you and I will ever do. I was given a parish mission once in Texas, and a woman came up to me and she said, John, there's absolutely no way it's going to work for me. I said, why? She said, because my husband's an atheist. I said, cool. I said, do you sleep in the same bed as him? She said, yeah. So she went home, and I said, I want you to pray in your bed out loud 7 minutes a night. She wrote me a real long email. If you ever write me an email, make it real short. But anyway, she wrote me a real long email. And she told me everything that happened that night. 11 months later, she was writing that email. I still got it for proof. I can show it to you afterwards in my book. She said, John, I went home and she said, I did exactly what you asked. I went and actually, she said, I got the timer from my kitchen counter and I put it on my bedside. And she said, I set it for 7 minutes. She said, I thought it was hilarious. My husband was more annoyed with the timer than he was my actual prayer. She said that oftentimes what he would do is turn around the other way. Sometimes he would leave. Sometimes he would go make himself a sandwich. Sometimes he would come back. There was even a couple times, she said, where he turned up the TV. She said he had absolutely no respect for it whatsoever, but she said I didn't lose heart. She said there were a few nights, maybe a week, that I would forget, or maybe that I would miss, or I was too tired. But she said most of the time I stayed right on course. She said 6 months into this, she said, I noticed something. I walked into the bedroom and I saw my husband. He was reading one of my prayer books. She said he closed it really quick because he was real embarrassed. She put it next to the bedside. She said, but she noticed a change, a slight change continuing on in those days forward. She said, instead of getting up or instead of turning the TV up anymore, she would oftentimes see him actually looking at her, facing her. She said, of course, it was kind of weird at first, but she soon enough got used to it. 11 months later, she was writing that email to me. She said her husband was an RCIA becoming Catholic. RCIA becoming Catholic. And all it did was start with a prayer, 7 minutes a day. The most important thing you and I will ever do. Mother Teresa once was asked, she said, what in the world do you say to God for 2 hours that you give him every morning? And she looked at that person and she said, nothing. Nothing. And they said, well, then what does God say to you for those 2 hours every morning? She looked at him and she said, nothing. She said, when you love someone so much, sometimes all you want to do is sit in their presence. Men, pray.